Hey, gang, you unfortunately just get me this week. It's just the way that it's worked out during this virus thing. I was told to have a reservoir of podcasts before you launch your first one because people will kind of expect them if they enjoy them. And so I was excited because I had 6 episodes all ready to go. So I felt like I had that backlog and had some other guys lined up, and it seemed like it was going well. But this virus thing has kind of messed all of that up. So that's where we find ourselves, and I want to be sure and have something for this Sunday when it comes out for you three faithful watchers. But I want you to be able to have something, and I thought maybe it'd just be interesting helpful to just have a time where just talk about the ministry or the idea of the podcast itself. Though I wanted to do a little bit of a study here in just a second. But so that's the case, and I'm thinking I should have probably cleaned my room before I had done any of this. And I think my chair I think air is going out of it or something. It's kind of going down. I don't know. I may sneak out of the picture here in just a second. But that would be better. So, coming speakers and topics do have CJ from forgetting the name of his the church over there, Lighthouse, I think. CJ Ketchum is willing to do a podcast, and we've had it arranged, and then all this has happened, and so trying to still chase him down, get times together. I got John Cornett lined up. He's not a pastor, but he is a ministry worker here in LaPorte that we're all familiar with, and I think we can have an interesting time together with him. Now, CJ, I asked the guys if they have a particular topic that they would like to focus on, and CJ mentioned evangelism, and so that's the plans. We'll have a personal part at the beginning, and part 2 we'll be talking about evangelism with CJ if things go the way we have them planned. With John Cornell, we've not got to talk as much as we need to and want to on the subject, but it'll probably be along the lines of worldview kind of things. John and I were talking, and just some of the things he gets involved with in Facebook that I'm not sure I would do it. I'm not sure how helpful some of it is, but that's the kind of stuff we'll talk about, and he's got a unique place in ministry that he's at, and he's trying to take advantage of it. So hopefully a good time there. If you know of a pastor that you would like to be a part of this podcast, you want the community to get to know them better, suggest it somehow. Write to me. I don't know how it works on YouTube to make contact, but I'll try to put some information even on this one here, how you can make contact with me for suggestions of topics, suggestions of pastors, ministry workers that you think it might be good to do this, so we get to know them a little better. The whole community can have opportunities to do that. So we'll keep that in mind, and we'll see what happens. What I want to do very shortly this morning is just look at a passage. It's 1 Corinthians 6:3, and it says, "We give no offense in anything, that our ministry may not be blamed." We give no offense in anything, that our ministry may not be blamed. One translation puts it this way: we don't give people any opportunity to find fault with how we serve. You wouldn't think you'd have to be worried about you serving, lovingly serving, and trying to do good to people and them finding fault. But as we've been, as a congregation, going through 1 Peter, you find that is our calling. We're called to this. We're called to being abused and persecuted and seen as strange and all. But I thought that was kind of interesting, trying to give no opportunity for people to find fault in how we seek to serve folks. When I remember a long time ago when I saw this, and I thought about how we give offense in nothing, my mind immediately went to 1 Peter chapter 2, where it talks about Jesus being a stone of stumbling and a rock of offense. And I thought, how can you do that? How can we not give offense in anything when our main calling is the proclamation of the gospel, which is offensive to people? But it's two different words. The whole idea seems to be different in the sense of what's being said. And when you talk about that scandalon of Jesus being a stumbling block, then you're talking about the message of Jesus doing that, and we can't help that. We just have to keep proclaiming that, knowing that one has to stumble before they can get saved, can come to the end of themselves, and to reach out for salvation in Jesus. But here the idea is just not giving reasons for people to look at the ministry, legitimate reasons for people to look at the ministry and go, I don't want anything to do with that because that person's a lunatic or just nasty, or just you get around them is just horrible. So no offense. It means no obstacle, nothing for them to strike against, nothing for them to look at. And they'll strike all the time. Unbelieving people will strike at the church all the time. But let us not give them anything to hit against. That's the idea. Not giving them anything that's solid that they can go there. That's what Christianity is all about. I knew that it was. I don't want anything to do with it. So no obstacle, nothing to strike against. This offense can be done with very few words sometimes. It can be amazing. I remember one time that a couple quit coming to the services, and I finally went to go see them and found out that I had missed shaking the wife's hand one time, and she was offended by that, and they didn't come until I went and tried to work things out, tell them I don't even remember that. But so it can be done very, very easily. Everywhere and in all things, Paul avoided by his conduct all real occasion of being reproached, in order that no one should have room to blame the ministry. Every one of us should be concerned to make to seek every way we possibly can to make sure that our actions, there's unnecessary bad actions in our lives that are immediate stumbling block for people as we seek to minister the good news to them and just do good to them. We need to be concerned about that. I know that can be to overburden ourselves. I don't know if it sounds contradictory, but we have to watch out about overburdening ourselves with that at the same time, because the gospel is not about what Jesus did to Tim Williams. The gospel is not what happened to you. The gospel is the message about Jesus, period, right? Thankfully, the gospel is not somebody looking at Tim Williams and go, oh, I like that. That's the gospel. I can see the gospel there. Yeah, in one sense, but the gospel is simply the truth, the proclamation of the words about Jesus Christ, the truth about him. That's what it is. So we have to be concerned that our life is not in a way, but not be overly burdened by that, because we can be very, very quickly, giving no occasion for stumbling in anything, that it might not be blamed, that it might not be blotted, that it might not be blemished in any way, the ministry. Paul is very concerned about that. We need to be concerned about that. I thought about, this is kind of a mixed bag here, but I thought about, remembering they'll be looking for things. Unbelieving people will just constantly be looking for things in those who identify themselves with Christ, with the church. They're looking for something, man. They just desperately want to see something. Because I think about John 3, where again, that the light came into the world and men loved darkness rather than light. So looking at some of the, I just got a list of some things. I'll try to explain them as I go through here. They will be looking for things. The world will be looking for things. I think about, even as we've been going through 1 Peter, we're not there yet, but in chapter 4 of 1 Peter, it says, verse 3, for we have spent enough of our past lifetime in doing the will of the Gentiles, of unbelieving people of the world, when we walked in licentiousness and lust and drunkenness and revelries and drinking parties and abominable idolatries. He says we spent enough time. That was our life, and we've done that enough now. And then verse 4, in regard to these things, in regard to licentiousness and lust and drunkenness and revelries and drinking parties, and in regard to these things, those who are involved in it, the Gentiles, the unbelieving world, they think it's strange that we don't run with them in it. Wow, isn't that isn't that just powerful to think about that? This whole book of First Peter, we're strangers, pilgrims, aliens, foreigners. We're just different in the world. We've been saved out of it. We know about the world because we once were in it, and it's still kind of in us in some ways. Residues of sin is there, but we've been pulled out of it, translated, and then put back into it. Not to be like it, but to be strangers unlike it, so that they think that it's strange. That, hey, they say, let's go do this because this is what life is about. And we say, it's not what life is about for me, and I don't want anything to do with it. So our separation from the world will be things that they'll look for, and may we explain it in a very gracious way of what's going on without, hopefully without being called a holier than thou kind of a person. May we be about love for the lost. May they understand when we encounter them and we share the gospel and they don't like that, they don't like a topic that we've just discussed, or our answer to the topic, hopefully a biblical answer to the topic, but that may they see our love for the lost. May they see our love for them, even if they don't like the message that's being said. May we always be acknowledging our dependence upon God. They're looking for cracks. They're looking for things to tear our lives apart and to say, no thanks to the gospel because of you. May we, as we do everything, acknowledge the dependence upon God that we have. Number 4, I have down here, no unnecessary offenses. The gospel itself is offensive. We can't change that. We're not called to change that. If we change that, then we have no message at all. But no unnecessary offenses. And then back, when I talk about the acknowledgement of dependence upon God, may we acknowledge the hatred of sin first and foremost in us. May they see that. May it not just be us coming across as some kind of person who's got it all together and we hate your sin as though that's the case, and they'll connect that with us hating them, of course. But a hatred of sin, but first of all with us, yes, in everybody else's life, because we see the destruction that it brings. So a hatred of sin. They see that. They'll be looking for things, and they'll misunderstand that, and they'll tweak that to their own advantage if they want to. J. Vernon McGee said, I don't think anyone can serve in a church today without hurting the feelings of someone. Some folks are there for no other reason than to get their feelings hurt. I don't know whether he was just having a bad day when he said that or not, but boy, sometimes you can feel like that as you're just dealing with people, and not necessarily even in the church, just out in the world. It's just they're out there just waiting for somebody to hurt their feelings so that they can get their pound of flesh somehow. And so may we be wise. May the Lord give us wisdom as we seek to just walk through this world. Let's remember that they look real close to find something against us. They will. And let them do it. And again, let us be people who acknowledge again that the gospel is not about me. It's not about me having got my life together. The message is about Jesus, what he does. Never look at me. You can't ever look at a Christian and see the fullness of the gospel. Unless it's the case that we look at it and go, boy, that's a guy who's still battling with sin, but he's giving praise and glory and honor to the Lord who is his Savior. I mean, there's that kind of struggle that they're not going to quite grasp. But they're going to look close to try to find something to bring us down. Remember, that's what they did with Jesus. They dogged his trail trying to bring him down. Paul had people dogging his trail all the time. I think about Daniel. Man, he had people just watching every move and finally just having to make up things about him in order to bring him down. So I just wanted to share that with you. We give no offense in anything that our ministry may not be blamed. I have that written at the bottom of our leadership agenda sheet every month to try to remind us again that what we're doing here, let's make sure there's no unnecessary offense being made. I just want to share that with you. I want to be able to have a podcast. I hope it wasn't a waste of time, but a podcast for this coming Sunday here, and may this work out to where you start getting together with some guys. Again, if you have any people that you're interested in being a part of this, your pastor that you would like to be on here. I'd love to have the opportunity to be able to talk and present this in such a way that we all can get to know them better. All right. Lord bless you. See you soon, Lord willing.